On this episode of Just Informed Talk, it looks like the gloves are coming off as President Trump has sounded off against the latest set of subpoenas issued by Democrats in Congress who are trying to start a Russia hoax collusion investigation 2.0, except this time they're just going after the president, no holes barred. And we're going to look at the latest Q post, so you guys are going to want to stick around to get all that info. First of all, I want to say thank you guys for coming and joining me here on Just Informed Talk. If you haven't, please come here to the landing page, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications to be notified when these videos get posted. And there's a thumbs up button at the bottom of this video. I want you guys to go click that because it helps the channel out big time when you do. So today we're going to pick up at Q post 2970. We left off at Q post 2969. And like I always say, guys, come back here to the landing page. Watch these last few videos if you want to get caught up to where we are. I've been pointing this out every time, but we've talked about this. Ever since January, Google has enacted these new algorithms that have basically taken all content made by patriots who want to cover this subject and is just gradually turning us down, slowing and limiting our traffic, not putting us in suggested videos. So the way you guys can help is come here, watch these videos, and share them on your own social media. And if you don't know what QAnon is, come here and watch this video. It helps out the channel big time. So I always encourage everyone to come do that. Today we're going to start right here. This is a Twitter post from Todd Penley. It says, "I'll take what is a QAnon proof for 1,000, Alex." Love it. Little Jeopardy comedy there. And this person, Beer at the Parade, says, "POTUS's notes from March 2nd, what's missing, dates," and I don't know what that word is, but there's actually, according to this picture, if you actually read the numbering, it goes from 1 apparently down to 14, and then it goes to 20. So 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19 are missing. So this was caught by Anon. And also, just to correct this before you guys race down the comments to say that this wasn't President Trump's hands. No, it wasn't. This was a picture, I think, of notes that were seen being held by Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, aka Kansas. And they actually reveal some pretty cool stuff, because if you kind of just like go in on this, you can see where it says meet IG, and that's the one that he's got his fingers like kind of pointing to. Meeting the Inspector General, as in the Inspector General who's been working with John Huber, as in John Huber who's been working with 400 investigators, doing each one maybe running 20 investigations of their own that might not be centered in Utah, but rather across the nation, crimes that maybe have taken place in the swamp in D.C., people of high caliber being involved. But then it talks about the other things like, I think it says Jim Donovan, and then it's Call Lavrov, and you can see these are like kind of like notes, but it's interesting the Anons pointed to the missing numbers. But I thought it was more interesting that it was talking about meeting with the IG, because we're talking about declassifying the FISA documents, right? The FISA applications and the related stuff around that, like the second scope memo. These things are going to uncover what true improprieties were going on behind the scenes. But Q says, sometimes reading between the lines provides meet IG Q. And that's exactly what it is. So obviously Q is clarifying that there. Now the next one here is this one where it's got this little clip, and I'm going to play it, I guess, with Jerry Nadler. You guys all know Jerry Nadler from the House, and he's in these new investigations. He's put out this, 81 subpoenas or whatever. Watch this.
Okay, so now you're not sure he's obstructed justice?
Personally, I think he has, but we have to look and see. If we're going to do anything, you have to have proof. I think there's a lot of evidence, but we have to get a lot more evidence.
So that's what this is about. You don't yet have the proof.
That's part of what this is about.
Okay, so what you just saw there is something Q wants us to look at. Think of the wording there. He says, there's a lot of evidence, but we don't have proof. That's what Jerry Nadler says on CNN there. He says, there's a lot of evidence, but we don't have proof. So listen to what Q has to say. Q says, listen carefully, reference regarding proof versus evidence. Democrat Party con, define evidence. Noun, 1. The available body of facts of information indicating whether a belief or proposition is true or valid. The study finds little evidence of overt discrimination. Synonyms: proof, confirmation, verification, substantiation, corroboration, affirmation, authentication, attestation, documentation, defined, proof, noun, evidence or argument establishing or helping to establish a fact or the truth of a statement. Quote, you will be asked to give proof of your identity, unquote. Synonyms: evidence, verification, corroboration, authentication, confirmation, certification, validation, attestation, demonstration, substantiation, witness, testament. Proof equals evidence. Listen to the clip again regarding proof and evidence. Define brainwashing. The truth is right in front of you. Think for yourself. Q. And I couldn't have said it better, because that is it's so Orwellian the way that these things are coming to be. It's literally where you have right here the perfect example of doublespeak. It's just twisting these words and using these synonyms and saying that they're not equivocally the same thing, when, you know, proof is evidence. Oh, well, we have a lot of evidence, but we just don't have any proof. Well, that's what proof is. Proof is evidence. So if you have a lot of evidence, but you don't have a lot of proof, then you don't have a lot of evidence. Or, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm misinterpreting that. You guys let me know what you think down in the comments. Now, here is a tweet from Breaking 911 talking about how the officials in New York City are beefing up security after this story came out, where it was these suspicious packages discovered near Waterloo Station, London City Airport, and Heathrow Airport. Now, the interesting thing when you read the story about these packages is, first of all, the markings on the packages. They were basically the only things that were really glaringly obvious off the get-go is that they used these stamps that were Irish. Now, obviously anybody could have put these stamps on it. It's not to insinuate that it was necessarily an Irish person or somebody from Ireland, but they had these Irish stamps. They were sent, and I guess there was a bunch of them sent out, but one person found one and opened it, like on the street or something, or in somewhere near the airport or something like that, and it actually like started to combust and it caught on fire. And then they found other packages at different airports. And this is interesting because Q says, coincidence, post stringers dropped last night, minus 48, watch the news. Q. So what is that saying? I mean, that's making the insinuation that we were warned. And I cover this in the last video if you guys want to go watch that. But if you don't, we can just scroll back a little and look at this stringer that was posted. Now, it started with protect MGL. Now, a lot of people have interpreted that as mogul, but I'm not sure if that's correct. I mean, mogul, I don't know. But regardless, this stringer was dropped. It said minus 48, and we all thought, I mean, I think the basic guess was at the beginning 48 hours. It's the most logical. And this was another thing where Q says fire, right? And that's exactly what these packages did. They caught on fire. So I'm not saying that that's necessarily a proof, but, you know, how many times before it's mathematically impossible for all of this to just be coincidental is my question. And that's what Q wants us to look at. And we're going to keep watching the news. And everybody, if you see something, say something. Find your local law enforcement agency, whether it's you just go to you don't have to go to the FBI or anything necessarily. I mean, you can go to your local law enforcement officers and you can start there. If you see something suspicious is what I'm saying. I'm not saying just go out. I'm just saying, be aware. If you see something, say something, and you don't have to find a specific person. You can just go to your local cops, because I'm sure that 99.99999 or 100% hopefully are going to just help you and take it very seriously. So that's something to think about. Now, the next one is basically understanding what this Meet IG thing meant, right? So the post we looked at just before here, it's this tweet with the actual notepad here where it says Meet IG. This is Q basically explaining it in regards to what we watched yesterday. If you guys, again, this is in yesterday's video, but there was a clip of John Huber giving this basic, and it was this here. It's this article about prosecuting major criminals behind the badge with Utah's U.S. attorneys. And this is actually an interview of John Huber and his staff. He's hired 6 new staff members, and the whole thing talks about how they basically have. He says everybody on my staff's got 20 cases going, and this was something that we watched in the last video. And if you guys want to watch that video, I encourage you to go back to this video, and you guys can catch that. But this goes into what we're talking about very much, because it talks about the Huber interview. Huber was quoted in that piece as saying they range from, and he was talking about the cases that they are prosecuting right now. He says they range from domestic terrorism to court-authorized wiretaps of criminal organizations to child pedophiles and those who would exploit our children, criminal aliens, and big fraud schemes. And Q says, do you think the above is Utah related? Crumbs are being dropped and missed. Think scope, Q. So I think that when Q says this, obviously it's just saying it's not. This is not all the crimes they're investigating are not just all Utah related. These are national crimes that are being apparently investigated according to Q, and says the crumbs are being dropped and missed, so people aren't picking up on this. And I mean, I thought I kind of picked up on this when we first covered it, but I guess a reiteration of it is not a bad thing to say that, you guys got to understand, John Huber and his team, I've said this for a while now, I guess I kind of have to repeat myself for people who are new, but it is completely 400 investigators. There's multiple dozens, maybe hundreds of cases ongoing. You have 80,000 sealed indictments since 2015 or 2016, I think. But you have a lot going on here. And the scope, I think when he says think scope, I mean scope of the investigation. Because if he was given a broad mandate in his investigations that were authorized and overseen in conjunction with the Inspector General, I mean, think about that, right? And he has 400 or some odd, 400 and some investigators. There's a lot going on that we may not even know, and these are clues and that are being missed, I guess. So it's good to point those out. Now the next one here says that the verbiage was changed, and they said suspicious packages as opposed to this, and Q just says fire. Now, why is that important? Well, like I said, this was a part of the stringer that we looked at before where Q said fire, and that's what happened. So there you go. So the next one here is interesting, and I'm just going to leave this here for you guys. You can put together with that whatever you want. And let me know down in the description, in the comments. I'd love to hear it. So it says, every barrel has a bad apple, but in this case, bad apples do not spoil the bunch. The core is what counts. The swamp is everywhere. Q. A lot of people have thought of this a million different ways. First of all, everybody wanted to first say Apple. Apple technology, Apple cell phone, the company. Yeah, I mean, to me, I don't know. I think one of the anons said something about bar, as in William Barr, barrel. And in this case, I think maybe the insinuation was that because even though Barr's been involved with stuff in the swamp, I mean, basically, the funny thing is, President Trump's trying to drain the swamp, but at the same time, having been there to the swamp and seen it like firsthand, kind of, listen, they're all swamp. You have to be involved with these swamp creatures in order to get in there. And it was always this good old boys club or whatever. And now President Trump's breaking that paradigm. And I think that what this is kind of saying is that even though Barr was, working for the Bushes and all this stuff, just because you've done or you worked with a bad apple or whatever, it doesn't spoil the bunch. That's kind of the way I read it, because the anon pointed out the Barr thing, and I thought that was interesting. But there's there's other ways to read it. Other people have said it's like the Big Apple, and that's something that we should look at, like New York City in regard to what we just looked at here and about this right here. They all kind of talk about New York, and then you have this talking about apples, and so maybe there's some sort of symbolism or message in there. But yeah, you guys can interpret that how you would like. The next one here is pretty funny. I can't even believe this happened. You know, sometimes stuff happens and you're just like, really? But yeah, the NSA posted this picture. Yeah, I think it says, I'm going to pronounce this Hydra. I'm going to think that the G is silent and that is Hydra. And it says, follow the dragon. The RSCA Hydra talk has moved now at Moscow and West and whatever. And I don't know. I haven't even looked at the numbers here to see if they mean anything. But let's put it this way. What this basically is Hydra is a piece of software that's been basically open source shared by the NSA. It was a part of a hacking tool that used to exist. I think this was leaked by WikiLeaks. But now they've open sourced the coding or the I guess, yeah, the coding of the program, and they've turned it over to the public. And what this program can do, I've talked to some people who are uh, far more have a higher expertise in this than I do. Yeah, obviously. And they were just basically saying, my first question was, this Hydra thing that was released, could it be used possibly to because what it is it decompiles algorithms. I mean, right here, according to this new article that just came out from Wired magazine, it says the NSA makes Hydra a powerful cybersecurity tool and open source. So they explain what Hydra can do right here. So it says you can't use Hydra to hack devices. It's instead a reverse engineering platform used to take compiled, deployed software and decompile it. In other words, it transforms the ones and zeros that computers understand back into a human readable structure, logic, and a set of commands that reveals what the software you can churn through it does. Reverse engineering is a crucial process for malware analysts and threat intelligence researchers because it allows them to work backward from software they discover in the wild, like malware being used to carry out attacks, to understand how it works, what its capabilities are, and who wrote it, or where it came from. Reverse engineering is also an important way for defenders to check their own code for weaknesses and confirm that it works as intended. So this was open sourced and put out to the public here. And my question was like, right after the beginning, was like, can we use this program? And I went and I actually asked some people who would know, because that's what you do, right? So I said, can we use this program to go and to decompile the algorithms that like YouTube and Google and all these other big social media platforms are using to allegedly, it would seem, maybe possibly censor conservatives. So like, could we decompile it and look at it in a way where we would understand what keywords they're using and what their actual algorithms do? Now, I had a few different answers. For the most part, people said no, and they gave a very technical, complex explanation of why it can't be done. Some people said possibly, but you'd have to have access to their in-house compiled code, which would mean you'd have to have somebody leak that information. Not that I would ever ask anybody to leak compiled code from Google that proves their algorithms are censoring conservatives. I would never, ever do that. Wake. I'm sorry, I had something in my throat there. But no, I mean, it to me, it's kind of funny. And this is what we're looking at. I don't know if this is going to make a big difference, but I think the symbol is what we're meant to look at, obviously. As Q says sometimes you need a little humor. Look familiar, Q. And then here it gives Q responding to the same post, right? And the funny part is obviously the Hydra symbol looks exactly like the 8chan symbol. And what people picked up on also was this dragon head, which is apparently from a cartoon, I guess, called He-Man and the Thundercats. And which is like an 80s cartoon that was about, I don't know, like, I never watched it, to be quite honest. So I'm kind of out of the loop on He-Man, and I didn't do any research, but it's a popular cartoon, I guess. Kind of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, probably, to a degree. I'm not sure. I'm just spitballing there. But anyway, it's a little humor, right? And what Q says is X also grew up watching Thundercats. So now who is X? Okay, a lot of different theories, and I have a couple of my own, or I have one of my own. And the main theory going around is they connected this Hydra and Thundercats to a Japanese animation company, and I think that the admiral who's in charge of the NSA is part Japanese, I believe, and that X could be the Admiral Nakasone, I believe it is Admiral. Actually, no, forgive me. He's a 4-star general. It's General Paul Nakasone, who's the head of the NSA now, and that is kind of like a shout out to him, maybe an homage to him. I'm not sure. Also, there's this. You got to watch or see this article here. The United States Air Force uses this huge sword fit for He-Man and the Thundercats to honor officers. Now, this was a report that came out, and this is a very similar sword to what you would see with He-Man. And it's kind of funny when you read through this, but it talks about how the U.S. Air Force actually uses this sword as a symbol, and it kind of resembles the He-Man sword. And when I looked up who's in charge of the Air Force Special Operations Command, it's Commander Gregory A. Smith. So I'm gonna go ahead and say whoever it is, it's an incredible shout out. So we'll have to keep looking at that one. Now the next one here is a tweet from this account of this guy, and it basically is pointing to the fact that you are now watching a shadow war take place. It says most of it thus far fought behind the scenes. I think Anons would be floored to learn the backgrounds of some of the patriots fighting it. Lots of techies and former Anons working for U.S. military intelligence and NSA. The brightest hashtag QAnon. And yeah, I think that's a fair statement to make. You will be surprised when you figure out who is behind all of this. I'm surprised every day just as we go in general. Anyway, the next Q says, good catch, Patriot. A puzzle within a puzzle, red, green, magic swords, NSA humor, Q. And I think what Q wants us to look at from that tweet was the red, green, the swords, and red, green is obviously something that we talked about with the military Corps of Engineers, or the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who are in charge of building the wall. It's the Red Castle. So there's symbolism in everything, and that's what Q, I think, is pointing to. And finally, the last one here goes back to that picture we saw at the beginning, right? And an Anon says, this is supposed to be POTUS hands. When did POTUS start wearing a wedding band? And I guess President Trump does not. And then Q says Kansas Q, which obviously is a reference to this being held by Mike Pompeo. And yeah, somebody picked that up. So that was a good catch. And Q wanted to look at that. Now, let me just show you how the incredible gloves are coming off here. This was the humor that we saw over on the Q board too. I probably glanced over this part of the Q post too, where it was talking about how we were doing humor here and President Trump was doing humor there. But this was President Trump's actual tweet. It says, quote, crooked Hillary Clinton confirms she will not run in 2020. She rules out a third bid for the White House. Oh, shucks, does that mean I won't get to run against her? Again, she will be sorely missed. And just a little tongue-in-cheek there from the president. And you have all these nice people down here saying that President Trump rigged the election against her. And yeah, I mean, it's really great to see all these nice people down in the comments saying such awful things. Some people saying great things. I love David Harris. He always has good content. But she's too busy running from the truth. Just that kind of stuff is great. And then you read through the Twitter feed, and it is incredible. He's really going all out. He points to this Jerry Nadler thing, the exact same thing that we talked about over on the Q boards, and talks about basically how all of this seems to be McCarthyism, like what happened with the Red Scare. And they talk about how there is no evidence of Trump colluding with Russia, but all kinds of evidence showing Clinton campaign did with Russia. And here's another one, and he put out a couple of Donald Trump Jr. tweets talking about how it's weird that all of a sudden the fake dossier author decided no longer wants to show up. And this was a good, because it segues into the story I want to talk about, how Christopher Steele has gotten cold feet. So he decides he doesn't want to come to make a rare public appearance. And this is really incredible. He was set to have this appearance in front of a pro-democracy group, and now it seems like they're backing out of that, and I wonder why. You know what I mean? Like, you guys see what we deal with every day here. So obviously that was something I wanted to cover, and President Trump's basically taking the gloves off on his Twitter and going after, and rightfully so, what this has become, which is an unending fishing expedition where they're gonna, because you have to presume innocence, and that's one of the basis of our entire society. So you do this whole Trump-Russia collusion thing and there's nothing there, and then you're just like, oh, well, let me just go after the president for anything that may have occurred because I'm in the government and I can use my powers and resources to get any information that exists about him, and then try to get some charge on him that, you know, is in the big scheme of things. I think we're far less worried about President Trump, you know, and I'm speaking for myself, I guess, far less worried about President Trump may or may not have paid a tax here or there. And that can be, you know, civilly compensated. You know, you can make a recompense there. But as opposed to somebody like Hillary leaking state secrets out, allegedly, and doing all types of other things with classified information that are completely improper. And then this whole spying thing from the FISA court on President Trump's administration, guys, I don't know. You tell me in the comments. What do you think? I'm just saying that there is so much there when it comes to the Democrats in Russia that it's pretty crazy to think that now that there's no evidence of anything with President Trump in Russia, they're just going to switch, oh, it's Russia investigation 2.0 through the election. It's sad. It's sick. I wish we had won the House of Representatives. I really do, because this is a sick thing I think we all have to deal with every day, is watching the Democrats and their crazy investigations that are nonstop and endless. So that's where I'm going to leave it. A few things, you know, look, guys, we've talked about this before. They're not suggesting these videos. The traffic is down. I know, I see the numbers. We're down like 50% or more in traffic alone on the channel, while subscribership is going up, while all the other analytics are going up. So there's obviously something being gamed in the view counts. And I don't know. Okay, I'm willing to say I don't know, but I depend on you guys and your support. So there's a few ways you can help out the channel. First of all, there's Patreon, patreon.com/justinformedtalk. There'll be a link in the description. You come here, click this button to become a patron, and know that you guys are helping fund this channel. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And I'm thankful for your kindness and generosity in keeping this channel going. Also, come here and check out a GoFundMe I set up. There'll be a link in the description. It's for a one-time donation, or if you want to do it anonymously, you can go do it over here on GoFundMe. And I really appreciate the support. You guys really are what make this channel possible. Another thing is to check out justinformednews.com. It's got links to the Q stuff. It's got links to different news websites. It's also got these news feeds you can check out. Plus, it's got all the content from the YouTube channel you guys can come check out here. And come find me over on Twitter at justinformu on Twitter. And you can get all my awesome, hilarious, great tweets. And I really appreciate you guys checking that out. Now, before we sign off, there's one thing I do at the end of each one of these episodes, a segment called God's Grace is Greater. And it's where we talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. And for tonight's episode, I just want to talk about one of my favorite verses in the Bible, really. Not that they're all not great, but Psalm 23. And we're going to read it. It's talking about the Good Shepherd, our Lord and Savior. It says, "The Lord is my shepherd. There is nothing I lack. He lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He renews my life. He leads me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even when I go through the darkest valley, I fear no danger, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Only goodness and faithful love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord as long as I live. Amen. I can't tell you how much those words are truly comforting to myself, and I hope that they're comforting to you to know you're never alone. You're never walking this path alone. God is with you. God will help you. God will save you. God will put you on the path you need to be. All you have to do is reach out to God, open your heart, and He will come in and show you the way. And that's where I'm going to leave it. I want to say thank you guys for watching this episode of Just Informed Talk. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure there's a little thumbs up button. That's the like button. Go hit that button. That's a big thing. Also hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. But I want to say thank you guys for watching Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.